we kind of cannibalized over the years as technology moved into the building. People who were installing those things basically took 10 snips that looked like a can opener as far as our ceilings go. It was horrific. So we moved tile around to make complete rooms. But those colors represent different periods in the restoration. So the green color is the oldest color that we have, that we know is original to the building. Then you'll see an off-white color that was used at a later date. And then you'll see the silver tiles, which are unpainted and just sealed, represent the new tiles that we had to put in some of the areas and paint through. So that was something that we left to be able to tell the story of the building. And then also on the second, actually on the third floor, if you go into, is it the west room, Jess, that you refer to, the west conference room on the third floor, you'll see an area where we shadow box around the brick and the plaster. During the constructive demolition, we realized that there was beautiful craftsmanship that we were going to cover back up with new plaster and paint in some areas, and we felt very lucky to see that workmanship. And so we left an area shadow box so that you can see what we saw. And I just encourage you, whenever you see that, to remember that this entire building was built with no power tools. So it's very, it really is outstanding to think what we have today and the art that went into architecture here. The last thing is that this building, while we did a $9 million restoration, construction began in 1904, was completed in 1905 at a cost of only $60,000. And there's some replacement marble and stair landings that our project manager and I go to Birmingham, Alabama to get because it's rose marble, and all the rose marble has been quarried out of Georgia. So we had to do a couple of replacements there. But I'm here through the evening to answer any questions that you may have later. Thank you for all being here. Thank you for loving our community, our downtown, this building as much as you all do. Thanks.
Okay, we're getting ready for our presentation. Just quite before we do, I see definitely some historic preservationists in the area, some people that have lived in Valdosta a long time, some people that are affiliated with this courtroom and this courthouse that have worked here. And I'd just like to just have those folks like either stand up or raise your hand if you either worked in this building or you were affiliated with it by a relative working here, or you actually tried cases in this building. I think I see people here in the room. So, y'all, anybody stand up? There's a hand over here. Converse, certainly you did something in this building. Both of y'all rights, right?
I did something in this building. My brother Nick and I used to shoot pigeons right out of my grandfather's office window. When we were in junior high school, we rode our bicycles down here in the afternoon and go and visit with him. And then he would have put some scratch figures out on the grass out there on the valley and central line. And we would raise the window up and with very small, 20 feet short rifle, and shoot pigeons. So,
wow.
That was the start.
What a fun
It
memory.
did come out later.
Right. Okay, all right, fantastic. And Lila Kay, your husband, I'm sure this was his mainstay, I'm sure, right? Is that correct?
His office was down in the southeast corner. Joni Parker is to his place.
Okay, fantastic. That's wonderful, wonderful connections. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to say anything about when the courthouse was the main courthouse? Okay, well, fantastic. Well, I'm James Horton. Like I told you before, I'm with Southern Georgia Regional Commission and the Heritage Foundation. And I do want to thank Page Dukes and Lowndes County for not only the restoration of this beautiful building, but for letting us be here today and utilize this wonderful building to highlight some of Valdosta's past. Okay, so just starting off, one thought that I had that I've been talking about and bounced it back with Donald Davis over the years is This presentation focuses on the grand homes that would have been located on Patterson Street, starting in downtown Valdosta and going all the way out to the Brookwood Shopping Center, which is now the University Center. And what the thought was, there are still many grand homes located on Patterson. It's still a beautiful, impressive drive today. However, if all the homes that had been demolished, which I'm going to highlight about 20 of them today that were taken down, had remained and been maintained over the years, then with the downtown Valdosta and this connecting historic district going down Patterson and going deep on either side would be a historic district that would be rivaling that of Charleston and Savannah, and would have been well known all over the state of Georgia and could have been even internationally known as well. And today, this presentation will be filled with some facts and some thoughts and some opinions, so please, if there's something you think is incorrect, just go with the flow, because it's for fun. It's not a book. Nobody's making any money off of it. It's just for fun. So if it's wrong, it's just wrong. So you can correct me though. Anybody feel free to say something during the presentation if you want to add a comment or say something that you don't believe to be completely true or correct. Very quickly, historic preservation is supported by the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the Department of the Interior and the federal government running the National Register program. Even in Georgia, we have a Georgia Register of Historic Places, and there's almost 100,000, well, there's over 80,000 properties listed in Georgia alone. In Valdosta, there are 7 National Register Historic Districts, and one of them will be highlighted on Patterson Street today. This is just a map. I don't expect you to really get much from this map. The outlined area right here is what we refer to as the local historic district, and the entire area that I'll be talking about today on Patterson Street does fall within that district, and those colorful areas are the multiple National Register districts that are individually designated as districts around Valdosta. This faint square is something you will see later. It is in your handout if you're following along with the handout that you got that had the numbers on it. This is the North Patterson Street National Register Historic District. This is just a map. I wanted to just kind of say this one thing. There's a discussion about what happened on Patterson Street and why the big homes were taken down. It was an urban renewal. It was more of a natural process based on economics and thought patterns and more modern innovations in house building and the automobile. And I will try to kind of highlight that throughout the presentation, but there was a couple of urban renewal areas. This is around Crane Avenue and another area. I don't know much about it. It's such an old document. I just wanted you to know there were a couple of small areas that did have urban renewal, but it was not downtown Valdosta or Patterson Street. This lady is an Adel native. I'm sure most people in the room would know who she is. Her name is Joanne Greiner. She is not with us anymore as of 2016, but Joanne was a huge proponent of Valdosta. She's the originator of the Azalea Festival and put that on many years until someone else took it over. This is her at the stadium overlooking Brookwood Park Drexel Park, where the Azalea Festival happens every year. And Joanne, being a Valdosta native, she was born in 1933, and so she was a child in the height of the life of Patterson Street here in Valdosta, and that was before television and before a lot of other entertainments. And so coming from Adel, going to Valdosta was a big thing, and every once in a while on a Sunday afternoon late or some other day, Saturday, Joanne's mom would say, "Hey, Joanne, let's get in the car and drive down to Valdosta." and let's just go look at the houses in Valdosta. So they would come drive and look at the big houses and be amazed at the architecture and what was going on, and they would drive up and down Patterson Street and other areas in the city. So that just gives you an idea of how popular the area was at one point. And Joanne was more like known as a kind of a community activist. She was involved with the Dosta Theater downtown and a lot of other things around town. And so you'll see her picture pop up again. This is an early view of Patterson Street. If you see the ground, it's not very visible, but you can see it's a tree-lined street. You really can't see any houses, but this is when the cotton was being sold here in Lonwdes County and in Valdosta, and they came downtown to bring it to the train so that it could be shipped out. But the main reason I wanted to show you this is that Patterson Street was dirt back there in the late 1800s when this picture was taken. And as a matter of fact, I think this is one of the earliest photographs that is housed in the museum here in the Lonwdes County Historical Society Museum. This is another view of Patterson Street from the courthouse, from looking out of one of the windows. I think it had to be one of the windows closer to the front of the building, but this is Patterson Street looking north, and you can see a couple of the large houses there, but that's still an unpaved street. You can see the trees are a little bit bigger, and the large houses are a little bit more visible there. Here is Patterson Street looking north again when it was bricked. This is a 1905 view, and if you will focus in the middle, you see what looks to be a narrow train track. That was the trolley track for Valdosta. So the trolley would go north up Patterson Street out to what was known as Pine Park, where the state fair would have been held, and Valdosta became quite famous for that state fair, and it did a lot of economic building here in the city. This is a view of Patterson Street yesterday, and I stood in the middle. I risked my life. There's a lot of cars going down the street. But if you can believe it or not, there was just 2 or 3 seconds where there just was no car. And I just had that good clear view, and you can see many blocks down Patterson Street. But the bricks are gone, and it's now paved with asphalt. So we went from dirt to red bricks, now to pavement. And if I had my guess, I would say those bricks could possibly still be under that pavement in this street here. This is a view of the electric trolley. Valdosta was the smallest city in the United States to have a trolley. It ran several routes through town. It was an open trolley, and if you can see beside where the gentleman is standing, you could jump up on a little platform there and hold onto a rail. And so it's like the Rice-A-Roni commercials that we used to see or whatever, with somebody hanging on the outside of a trolley in San Francisco. So that was Valdosta's real trolley. And if you look on the front, it says Valdosta to Pine Park. So this is the one that went the north route and out. I don't know if there was more than one car, but I know this one definitely went to the state fair up and down Patterson Street. This is the last remaining remnant of the trolley system in Valdosta. If you don't know, I thought for many years it was a little stop, maybe for a bus or something that VSU had built, but it's not. It was put there when VSU was the normal school and when it was an all-ladies school, and it was put there as a waiting station for the trolley. And it is the only piece of the trolley system left, because in World War II in the 1940s, and I don't know exactly what year the tracks were taken up within that several year span, but the tracks, trolley tracks were taken up for scrap metal drive during World War II to get more metal.
James, if I could ask that real quick,
Sure.
the production gate, metal gates that you see on the front of the courthouse, those gates were there too, and they were scrapped as a part of that process. And whenever I was doing some research about this building years ago, selected.
Wow, that's amazing, and those gates never got melted down.
Yeah, they did, we had to redo them.
Oh, yeah, they did get melted down, but you did a reproduction.
But
Okay.
if you look, you'll see where the old hinges and also in the floor where they were secured. So the old mountings are still there.
Right.
So we just had them redone as a part of the restoration project.
Fantastic. This is how wonderful things, bits of knowledge get shared, and so now everybody in the room will know that as well. So while we're talking about little bits of knowledge, I'll mention one other thing. At the front entrance of the courthouse that you all came in today, there's a small brass round plaque about this big, and it's in the second column from the left as you come in the front door, and it's a survey marker, and it's a survey point where much of downtown Valdosta and the surrounding areas were surveyed using that point, because the courthouse is a very static building. It's one that's not expected to be torn down very often in a community, and it was built of stone, and those pillars, those many thousands of pound pillars of stone there in the front porch would remain for a long time. So it was a great survey point to lay out a lot from that very single point on the courthouse. So that just shows you the more importance of it. So you can see this trolley stop, however, right at the front entrance to Valdosta State. It's maintained well, and there's a little plaque that has some great information on it about the trolley stop and where it went to Pine Park. Here's another view of the little trolley station. And here we go. This kind of begins our tour. Now that we've seen a little bit about Patterson Street, we're starting with the Lonwdes County Courthouse. This is pre-rehabilitation. It's always been a stately building, and it's located at 100 East Central. So it's kind of the center of town, the focus of town. Like I said, things were surveyed from it, and it's a neoclassical building. If you take nothing from this presentation today, remember the word neoclassical, new classical. And the neoclassical style gets its name from the front porch and the pediment that's at the front porch and the two-story columns are all reminiscent of the classical period in architecture. So that is the style of this building and the style of several homes that you will see in the presentation today. The current, as Paige already said, the current courthouse, the current historic building that we're in now was constructed in 1905 in the neoclassical style for $60,000. Now what you may not know, and I think it is shown in this building somewhere, and Jessica can surely tell you about it, is that I don't know about the first courthouse, but in 1860, when Lonwdes County was designated as a county, there had to be a courthouse there. So between 1860 and 1871, there had to be a courthouse, wooden structure, maybe log structure. I just do not know about that. Courthouse number 2 was in 1871, and they were all on this very location. Courthouse number 2 was constructed of wood in 1871. 1875 was a red brick building with the third courthouse, and it was torn down in 1904, and the current courthouse building was constructed in 1905. And I call it white brick. If it's yellow brick, I'm not sure. I think I just referred to it as a white brick building. The 1962, the Lonwdes County of Valdosta was growing such that the current courthouse became too small and did not have enough offices, enough space in there, and so the Board of Commissioners decided they had to add on rather than building a new building. They would add on to this building and could keep it viable. And Joe Bright, who we have some Brights in the room here, sons of Joe Bright, right? Okay, sons of Joe Bright, a well-known architect in Valdosta. This was the plaque that was on the building. This is the addition that was on the back of the Lonwdes County Courthouse. It was a giant addition. It really gave a lot of offices for records and rooms, and I think had a vault in it, and it had a lot of space, and it really made the Lonwdes County Courthouse remain viable for the next 50 years, because this addition was put on in 1962 and it stayed there till 2012. So that was the view for the next 60 years. And I will say this, there are people that will say, well, I didn't like that addition, I'm sorry they did it. But no, it made this building viable and usable and remain, and it could have made this building not be torn down. We will not exactly know how valuable that addition was to the back of the building, but it was also very historically appropriate, and this is the preservationist talking to you now. You may say, well, it really just doesn't look like the courthouse, but yes, it does. It took the arch you see by the little green boxes there. There's an arch that it picks up. It picks up the vertical lines. It picks up a lot of the white brick was close to the brick color that was here. And it was only attached to the building by one door frame. Like that exit sign right there over on the side of this building is the largest spot that this addition touched this original building. You could walk up between the two buildings in a space. And so when the annex was eventually taken off, it really didn't harm the building at all. So everything Joe Bright did was perfect. So you guys as daddy did a great job. And I'm sure you've heard people say, oh, I hate that building. Well, we can all say that, but that building did a lot to preserve this courthouse, and it didn't harm this courthouse in any way. So it was excellent. Here's another view of that building. It was also placed on the rear of the building, the least visible site, and you couldn't see it from the front of the building. Here's another view that is a rare view. It did have some steps on the east side of the building so you could enter it individually or through the courthouse itself. In 2012, our Joanne Griner, popping up again along with Ashley Paul, were the first two people to knock a brick out of the addition when the courthouse was no longer the main courthouse for Lowndes County, and they were looking for rehabilitation plans. That addition was no longer necessary. That room was not, the space was not necessary. And so the restoration, part of that restoration or rehabilitation of this building was to remove the courthouse annex. And so there she is, along with the sheriff popping off those bricks. You can see that blue crowbar and that red handled hammer she has in her hand. And that mouth of excitement, like, oh, what am I doing here? How exciting is that? So that's, here's a photo of the building without the annex on the back. This is a very recent photo. No, this is not, I'm sorry. This is a very recent photo, I apologize. This is one I took. I have a couple of others. Those views were provided with the annex were provided by Jeff Brammer. So, all right, here is a view. If you haven't been out at night to see this beautiful building, the lights are amazing. It changes colors, it plays music. It is beautiful, it's exciting, and it is a triumph for Lowndes County. This is not even the front of the building. This is the back of the building where the annex used to be connected, and the annex would have been connected right here. It's been changed to a window now, but the annex would have been connected just right there at that spot. So none of this was ever touched or harmed by the addition of the annex. And I'm getting to Patterson Street, don't worry, I promise. Here's another view just showing the beauty of the courthouse, showing those neoclassical columns at night. Here's a front view of this same very building today, and it just shows the stateliness of the building. You see those Ionic and Corinthian mixture of the column capitals, and that little spot, that survey spot I was talking about is right there, that little dot, just right there at the top of the steps. And the balustrades at the top, and the domes are copper, and the finials, the four finials, the vase-shaped finials on the corners of the balustrade are made of metal. So there's a lot of elements in the building. This is just across, this is across from the courthouse. Of course, the First Methodist Church has just had a wonderful renovation, so we're proud of that input of rehabilitation and money that's gone into that building that will preserve that for a long time. So, and this is starting our tour down the street. We're going from the courthouse and the Methodist Church, and we're going to progress north down the street. This is a view of just, it gives you an idea. Patterson Street has several references in its history, and I don't have those exact references to give to you, but we've heard the term and seen the term written in articles and history books where it was referred to as Millionaire's Row, and that's pretty true. Everybody back at the turn of the century at 1900 may not have had $1 million, but they had equivalents of millions of dollars at this point to build this type of house. These thousands of square foot giant houses with all this work in them would have been only accomplishable by somebody with quite a bit of money. But this gives you an idea of just how the houses were close together. And I will be showing you this. This is, you'll be surprised. Does anybody in the room know? You don't have to say, don't do a spoiler, but does anybody in the room know where these houses were located? You do? A couple of people, 3, 4? Okay, well, I won't surprise you, but I'll surprise the majority. Okay, so I've already sort of talked about that as Millionaire's Row. So we go from here to Brookwood Plaza. I don't expect you to read this, but these are just some of the features that you might see on the exterior of the homes as you're driving down Patterson Street. Lots of these are still there today. Some of these are gone. Most of the houses would have been constructed of wood. They would have been painted. Most of them were 2 stories. Most of them had 4 to 6 bedrooms, would have had 12-foot ceilings, beautiful interior woodwork, sawn work on the outside, balustrades on the porches with towers, gazebos, picket fences, and on and on and on and on. So these homes would have just had lots of beautiful architectural features inside and out. And down to the bottom, something that you might see also would be no air conditioning, poor heat, hot kitchens, bathtubs, working fireplaces with wood and coal. So those would be some of the downsides to these homes, and that's sort of one of the things that would contribute to their eventual demise. This is another view of that same row of houses looking in the other direction. The first view was looking south to north. This is looking north to south back towards the courthouse. And it would have been the 400th block, but that again is just the other view of what you would have made you think Millionaire's Row. There was a Valdosta Millionaires baseball team, which I don't know much about, but this is just a reference to the Millionaires. Again, this is 1913 photo. This is a picture of the Roberts family. The gentleman who is standing right here with the mustache and not the beard, but he was John Roberts. He was the mayor of Valdosta, and he was the mayor during a time when Valdosta began to grow rapidly at the turn of the century, and this is when we saw a lot of these giant houses be constructed. And you can also see just the clothing that the ladies are wearing and the suits that the men are wearing would have been typical of people who might have lived in these giant houses. The first building that I want you to see is on the left. It's a small 1-story building with a Texaco sign, Bassford's gas station. It would have been a stucco building. It would have been in the 1940s, probably constructed in the 1950s and 60s. And it sat right beside the Ritz Theater, and it was replaced by this building on the right, which was originally built as the First National Bank, which is now the Lonwdes County Tax Office, I believe. And even though this building would have been starkly modern when it was first built, it is now considered to be a historic architectural building in the mid-century modern design and flair. So it is now becoming and should be preserved from here on out because it's over 50 years old and is of a style of architecture that is no longer constructed. And it has some really cool light fixtures on the front of the building if you've not ever gone by and seen them at night. So the Ritz Theater was next door. There are probably people in the room that have known about the Ritz Theater. When the First National Bank needed to expand, they took down the Ritz Theater and built this new addition with this glass connecting way to it. So the Bassford's gas station went for the bank, and the Ritz Theater went for the addition to the bank. This is a photo looking from the courthouse again down onto the Converse Dalton house on the right, the one that's the most prominent. That's at 305 North Patterson Street. And on the left is 306 North Patterson Street, the A Converse house. So both of these were Converse homes. But what I'm really showing you is the blank yard, because you can't get that photo or that view today. If you see where the sidewalk here is, there would have been an iron fence. It's very hard to see, but there would be an iron fence. This would have been a garden for fruits here, and then a big green yard there. The Converse Dalton Farrell house is still here today, but on the right, the Big B Cleaners and those other commercial buildings were built on the yard. So they took up 301 and 303. It used to be the yard of the Converse Dalton Farrell house. And so those were infill development. Here is the Converse Dalton Farrell house as it is today, the Junior Women's Service League, and it's preserved beautifully. If you look at the black and white photo to the left, to the right of the porch, you'll see a dark spot and then a light spot. Those commercial buildings were built almost touching the columns of the Converse Dalton house, and there's actually a small rounded porch that goes out about 6 or 7 feet that would have been part of a little rounded kind of step out onto the porch that had to be shaved off for these buildings to be built so close to adjoining almost the Converse Dalton house. This home, the Albert Converse house that I showed you a moment ago, 306, was across the street. It was the other Converse house, and it was taken down for this other modern building, which was it was a commercial, I think it was a building that maybe sold clothing way back in the 1960s, and it's at 306 North Patterson on the corner. It's now 306 North Restaurant. But this is also a building that is historic as well this day. 309, jumping back across the street, the Briggs house used to sit where that was Southern Stationery, if you all remember, a few years ago, which has now been transformed into the post office. So that was replaced by a building that is still there. The old Southern Stationery building is still there from the late 60s, early 70s, but this has had a new facade and it's been divided up and changed. So that was a grand neoclassical house like the Converse Dalton Farrell, but the other, it has those 2-story columns and a big wraparound porch that wraps around in a U shape all the way around the house. Again, this now at the reveal of where these houses were, this is where Langdale's Supercenter car lot is. So where these houses would have sat, there is on this corner right here by this house is where there's an elevated thing where a car sits up on an elevated platform for advertisement purposes. So that's where this corner right there would have been. So there were 3 houses on that lot, and then you jump the street, and the one with the red roof was across the street. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings that got taken down right there for the purpose of building what I remember when I was a child was a Pick and Save building being there, and a grocery store of some sort. Anybody know the name, just out of curiosity? was it Harvey's? And
Star.
Big Star. And then, right, okay, so you had two of the big box stores that were building onto the north side of downtown, just as the automobile age was coming around. So most of these houses would have been built when the cotton was booming here in Valdosta. The Sea Island long staple cotton is one of the rarest and most supple and wonderful cottons in the world, and that grew a lot of wealth here, along with when the railroad first came to Valdosta. Then that cotton could be shipped out, and the farming of that cotton just grew to thousands and thousands, like 20,000 acres here in Lonwdes County. And then in 15, when the boll weevil came around, it destroyed that crop. But Valdosta and Lonwdes County was diversified in other agricultural ventures. And so that's the time around the late 1800s up to 1929. There were still some houses built on Patterson Street post 1929, but the big ones that mostly of what I'm showing you today would have been built before that time. And one thing that affected those houses was the 1929 stock market crash, when the Great Depression started, and that ran for about 10 years to about 39. And if I have my dates wrong, please excuse me. But then right on the heels of that was another great hardship to America and to Valdosta, causing more problems with these homes, was World War II. And so for a long period of time, you had the Depression, then you had World War II. And what happened during the Depression, people didn't have money, and so they could either rent rooms out in these big houses to sustain these big homes, or some of them were converted into apartments for a short time. And then later, some of those apartments would have been removed. Some of those might have stayed as apartments, I can't say that. Maintenance would have been lacking during the Depression. Nobody was buying paint. People were patching and just doing the best they could. And these houses being made of wood, and in the South Georgia environment with water, rain, humidity, began to deteriorate. So there was a period of deterioration, and then when World War II came, more people left, and a lot of the men and younger people who were in the working trades that could live in these homes and maintain these homes left as well. So they even got further damaged during World War II. And then after World War II, the automobile came to be mass produced, and that's when we all could get in our car and leave town. We didn't have to ride that electric trolley up and down the street to go to and from our houses anymore. We could get in a big automobile and drive many miles. So then we could establish shopping centers and suburbs, and we could leave the downtown area, and so that caused people to leave these homes. So that's kind of the reason why the houses became less popular. Here is that Cranford home. It's one of the ones that I showed you in the picture earlier, another giant. This is a Queen Anne house with a center tower, and it sat on the corner right where that red truck is sitting, where that platform is right there. So there's the Langdale Supercenter. This home at 506 North Patterson stood where this building is today. I don't know what the original use for this building is, but preservationists like myself, it's not historic yet. It might be kind of close or getting close, but I refer to it as a phony colonial because it tried to look colonial. It really didn't fit in. These things were all over the place. Actually, the C&S Bank downtown also kind of used the phony colonial motif for their building as well. But now these buildings are getting to be closer to historic, so I'll have to give them a little more respect when they hit, and the bank may be already 50 years old. I think it about is. Well, and one thing I will point out, you really can't see it, but up in that tower on the 3rd floor, that would have been stained glass. So that was also one of those features that you would have seen in a number of the houses along Patterson Street. And there's also a balustrade around the top of that tower on the corner of that Queen Anne style house. This house still remains today, and the reason I'm showing it to you is because it's had drastic changes to it. It's 613. This is by, let me see, is this the one? I think it's, yeah, this is not by Ming's. Is this by Ming's restaurant?
Two down.
Okay, 2 down. It's close to it. However, this is would have been a simple Queen Anne style house that has been sort of neoclassicalized a little bit with those 2-story columns put on the front of it. I guess it was an attempt to modernize it, but the wraparound porch was removed, the chimneys were removed, and some of the other features just changed about the house. But it does remain today. This building to me, the J.Y. Blitch home, kind of reminds me of a little church, the way that it's almost like it had a bell tower on that building. But this is a very early photo with the horse and carriage there when Patterson Street was not paved. It did have some kind of fence around it that I can see, in a small little house to the side of it as well. But it was replaced with this historic home, which is an attractive. I would say this would be a Queen Anne cottage of the Free Classic style. So it's still an attractive house today. So we had a historic that was replaced by a historic. This home with this corner gazebo, another Queen Anne style house with these turned columns that were quite fancy, and decorative cornice, and probably wooden shingles on that corner rounded gazebo there. And a beautiful decorative brick chimney was replaced by this building, which I'm sure was extremely shocking when it was built because it incorporates concrete blocks, cinder blocks, metal, huge panes of glass, and aluminum. So I'm sure in the 1960s, when this building was built, it was probably rather modern for its time, but it took out a beautiful home. This home is still here. It's no longer on Patterson Street. It sat at 801 on this side of the street. And it was replaced by this beautiful 2-story Craftsman house here that had some pretty stonework on the front of it, and had some knee braces and some real pretty features around the porch with an arch at the front porch. So it was, but the house that's here, the teal colored house is here. It was taken from the corner of Ashley Street and Adair Street and moved back to where it stands today. So it was picked up and moved back, and it's one of several houses that were moved off of Ashley Street. So this is the second house, quite a beautiful home that was built in its place. And if you look hard to the right there, you can see some windows. That is this house in the background after it was moved in the black and white photograph. And there's a view of another house to the left. I don't have a photo of that house. I don't have a photo of every house on Patterson that was demolished. We have only the photos that were available at the Lonwdes County Historical Society. So there's some pictures that I can't show you that were of homes that were taken down. And then this second house at 801 Ashley, the beautiful Craftsman house, was then later demolished for this convenience store that was built. And I don't have anything bad to say about the people, but this was not an attractive, in my opinion, replacement for this beautiful home that was here. It would have been much better to have both homes still in existence today. So you still have a convenience store in operation selling fuel today. And I will mention that also on one of the other corners opposite this, there was a home that was picked up and moved into the Fairview neighborhood. So it was in jeopardy in the location that it was, and so it was moved to River Street in the Fairview neighborhood. And is there somebody here who lives in that house that knows that? Oh, there's a hand right there. I was told that the owner of the home might be here. I don't have a photo of your home, but you guys, it's beautiful. You drive down River Street. It's what, the third one on the right? Is it? Second one on the right? Second one on the right. Yeah, right by the stucco house on River Street. So we're glad that was picked up and moved and preserved. This grand neoclassical bank-looking building with its beautiful cornice and its dental molds and grand chimneys was at 808, right next door to the other home that we just looked at. It was taken down for this giant furniture store. I think it was a Heilig Myers, maybe when I was a child.
Rhodes.
It was Rhodes Furniture, and then maybe it was a Heilig Myers, and maybe it was vacant, and now it's Furniture Express. VSU used it for record storage for a long time, so you could go by there and just see boxes in the building, but now it's back at least as a furniture store, and believe it or not, it will become historic at some point. It's probably there now. I haven't researched the exact date of when these buildings were constructed, but anything that is 50 years old, and so that would have to be, I can't even tell you that date. I should have been prepared to tell you what the date is that's 50 years old and older now. And I'm sure that beats this. This mid-century modern white brick building, also here on the corner of Gordon and Patterson on the east side, was the Lowndes County voting, or the Lowndes County Board of Elections. There we go. Board of Elections for a number of years, so it was an accessory to the county offices and the courthouse. And it replaced this Queen Anne home house on the left with this quite neat round tower, again with stained glass on the third story and around what could be described as maybe a widow's walk on the top of that as well. This building is here. Why am I showing it? Everybody says, why are you showing the crescent? It's here. Well, it almost wasn't here, and I think probably a lot of people in the room know, and I am not going to tell that story. The Heritage Foundation will be having an annual dinner at the Crescent this year in May. Jessica, do you recall the date we decided? I can't remember. We'll tell you the date. We expect all of y'all to be there. And we are going to tell the story of the Crescent at that meeting. But it was barely saved from demolition, and it almost turned into a gas station. It just came a hair close from being destroyed. So thank goodness it wasn't. Thank goodness we had some great-minded people who came together to save that structure for Valdosta today, because it's one of the most recognizable architectural neoclassical structures, residential structures in Valdosta and Lowndes County, and actually all of South Georgia and all of Georgia. So it's an amazing structure, and thank goodness it didn't turn into a gas station. This stately Queen Anne with its kind of ice cream cone, almost extremely high-pitched tower on the corner. It kind of is reminiscent of a Queen Anne that is existent on Wells Street in the River Street neighborhood, or the Fairview neighborhood, but it's not. It was located at 905, and this three-story building that I'm not sure what its original use was, but it's now owned by VSU, and it's the Continuing Education Center, but this building replaced that home. This home is a little more modest, still quite a pretty home, and it was replaced by a metal building, sadly. That metal building has been a number of things over the years. When this picture was taken about 4 or 5 years ago, it was special occasion rentals. Now it's just vacant. So if we could get that building taken out, that would be kind of a nice addition to Patterson Street, because it is right close to the Crescent. So it is not historic. I hope it doesn't become historic. Some things just need to go. And if somebody in this room owns it, I apologize. Don't take it personally. This brick building, modern brick building, replaced this one-story home here with a wraparound porch on the left. It was not the grand two-story, but still would have contributed beautifully to Patterson Street today to make it connected all the way down with historic homes with these gorgeous porches. And these porches, by the way, were used for cooling and shade, and everybody may remember the light blue colors that were painted under the porches to remind you of the cool sky and the cool blue, because there was no air conditioning in these boogers, and when it was 100 degrees outside, it was 100 degrees inside. And you had those windows open, and the mosquitoes came in with the hot air, and they came and went out all the time. So that was part of the discomfort of these giant houses. This is the next few slides. There's going to be 14 slides, and I'll try to go through them right fast, are all homes that still exist, and they are in a several block area on North Patterson Street on both sides of the street, and it's known as the North Patterson Street National Register Historic District. So they're not houses that were demolished, but they are houses that are still there. They're preserved. They're in the local historic district and the North Patterson Street National Register Historic District. And this is one little nugget of beauty that if you could drive up in there and just stand and look on both sides of the street and imagine all the way from downtown Valdosta to the University of Center just being covered with homes like that are in this district. So this is 1004. 1006, one of the very few private homes in this area that's still lived in by people who have a family there. It's not used for a law office or another commercial venture, but a number of the houses that are there today are not residential, but are being used for office spaces because that was the most practical way to fill those large rooms and spaces and keep those houses alive. 1008, this is formerly Saliba Moore and Voiles. It's currently vacant and for sale. If anybody in this room wants a historic home, you can buy this one. It's quite a nice home with a curved wraparound porch. 1100, the Herndon Company. This house is not the original house on this spot. This is a historic home now. This house on the left was originally the one that was facing Patterson Street, a Queen Anne cottage, and it was taken and moved back onto Mary Street, and it is sort of behind the stucco house that's there today, and it is also owned and maintained by the Herndon Company. So that is a win that house was not destroyed but was moved back. This house is really a story because the one-story house on the left became the two-story house on the right. The porch is still visible. If you can see, the porch is still visible on the house on the right, but that roof, that hip roof and those gables were taken off, and a whole second story was added, and it was made into a neoclassical mansion, which is Bennett Law Firm today. I think I'm correct about that. Yes, it's Bennett Law Firm today, and it has these beautiful neoclassical columns, and so this is very reminiscent of what you would have seen all along Patterson Street back in the day. But it's really interesting how one story went to two stories like this. This home had a wraparound porch. The black and white on the left is still the house on the right. The jut out porch with the columns remains, but the wraparound part was taken off. But this is still there. This was known as the Landmark. The Lonwdes County Historical Society was there for a period of time as well, so it's one of the early homes of that before it went to the Carnegie Library where it is today. This more modest home, still very contributing to the National Register District and to Patterson Street, is at 111. It's used for, I think, it's still residential, but it's used for some kind of commercial residential as well, as this one is a commercial residential venture as well. But this is a craftsman style house built in the 1940s, a much later addition, but still historic and contributing to the street, as well as this brick two-story here that has craftsman features to it as well at 1107. 1101, this green, wooden, more modest Victorian era house is also still existing today and has been painted not that long ago, so it's very nice looking. This home, I couldn't get a very good picture because of these wonderful southern magnolias, but the house on the left is a black and white, an earlier photograph of this same house at 1009 North Patterson Street. Crossing And we have, actually, I'm sorry, I'll go back. We crossed, ooh, wait a minute, I've gone too far. Hold on a minute. Instead of going back, I went forward. All right, so we crossed the street. We were on the west side of the street going up Patterson here. Now we crossed the street at this house and we're going back down the other side, the odd side of the street. So we're going back down on the east side of the street, back towards downtown if you're following on your map. So we're going down in numbers again with this house. And then 1007, the Langdale Valdosta, which is also a beautiful neoclassical house with some very pretty ionic scrolled columns, and the fluting on the columns is very nice as well with this wraparound porch. So you can see these homes today and enjoy their architectural features. And going down to 1003 North Patterson, the William Woodall Law Office also has some small ionic scrolled columns as well. Now we leave that area and we're back out again closer to the University Center. This is the 1012, the corner, is it Mary Street there? Ann Street. I knew it was one of the girls' names of the streets. So Ann Street, this craftsman house on the left would have been a wood-shaped sided house and have knee braces and typical, quite pretty craftsman features, was replaced with this ultra-modern building on the right, which was, when I remember a few years ago, WALB TV station, and I'm sure it had several uses before that. And now I think it's a daycare center. But it is definitely a mid-century modern building that is quite architecturally significant in and of itself. It is historic now and should be preserved as a part of the history of Patterson Street. The Liberty gas station is still there on the corner of Ann and Patterson across the street from the WALB building. And it used to have the Julio's building sit on this corner right here. And the Julio's building, even though it was stucco, is a prairie style house, and it was picked up and just moved behind the gas station where you can see it sits today on the right. There's a little glimpse of it back there, but that was a save for Patterson Street. I'd like to see it, even though the Liberty gas station is going to be historic and probably be characterized as one of the earlier gas stations in the development of the car after World War II. Anyway, it still would be quite nice if we could bring that house back up to Patterson Street. This is one of the largest homes that would have been on Patterson Street. I venture to say that this is it's probably 6,000 square feet home or more. The J.N. Bray House was replaced by the shopping center known as Brookwood Shopping Center, and the Sears building would have been right where that little gazebo type roof is there, a little conical roof. But this was the Brookwood Shopping Center, and I remember the candy counter when I was there in Sears was the most fun place for a kid to go. And I got a question here in the audience.
So that house was actually moved over when all your people built a house in the corner of some country club, and Jerry Jones, part of that house was moved everything off.
You're absolutely right. Some of the interior of that house, I didn't mention that, but some of the interior of this house has been moved to that house. And I think also that tower on the corner, I believe, is sitting in the backyard of that house. So there was, the interior woodwork of this house was moved there because it was either curly pine or tiger oak or just beautiful pristine oak woodwork with fireplace mantles and trims and moldings and things like that. So the interiors of these homes would have had beautiful woodwork in them that would have been made, a lot of it from virgin pines that were found here when Lonwdes County was first named a county and first had people moving into it. So anyway, this is one of the larger houses. I would say there would be 2 or 3 houses on Patterson Street that would have been 6,000 square feet or larger than that, potentially. This more modest stucco prairie style house would have being at 1204, where this mid-century modern white brick building is, which is now historic. It's where the Art Center was located at one point in my memory, and then now VSU owns it. They were using it for a mail, like for their campus mail, and since I'm not sure if they're still delivering mail on the VSU campus or not, but that's what the use was a few years ago. This two-story neoclassical home here with the beautiful azaleas around it was replaced by the telephone building, the Southern Bell Telephone Building, which will become historic. It's probably pretty close to it now, but it's at least a nice brick building that will transition into the history of Patterson Street as well. So, and it's now used as the STEAM Center for Valdosta State University. So it was wonderful that Valdosta State University, and I congratulate them for assuming some of these big buildings that could have become derelict relics here. The Brookwood Shopping Center was getting scary. Whenever they took it over, there was grass and weeds beginning to grow up into the parking lot when Sears and the other buildings there moved into the mall in the early 1980s. And so a few years later, those buildings were just sitting there unused. So thankfully, VSU has taken over and maintaining some of those buildings now. And that concludes the end of my presentation. And I want to thank the Lonwdes County Historical Society for providing the photographs that were in this presentation, for Donald Davis for helping with photographs and editing and helping me get some of this stuff right, Harry Evans for providing photographs and for being very patient with me when I asked him a million questions and for a million pieces of information, Lonwdes County for hosting the event in this beautiful courthouse building today, and for renovating, rehabilitating this beautiful courthouse today for us to continue to use and enjoy, for Jessica Gaines for setting this event up and making the first slide that you saw that was so pretty, and for making the map that you all got to pick up and follow along, the trifold brochure, for Jeff Brammer for providing photographs for today, Louis Schmier for writing that wonderful book that he wrote, and I can't call the name of it right now, but it's a wonderful book.
Ray in the Sunbelt.
Say that again?
Ray in the
Oh,
Sunbelt.
it's the I'm not going to get it out, but it's a great book if you can find it on for sale somewhere. And Southern Georgia Regional Commission and the GIS, Geographic Information Systems Department, for helping make a map from today's presentation. And for anybody else that I might have missed, I thank you too. And I also want to thank all of you all for being here, for supporting historic preservation in Valdosta and Lonwdes County, and for being interested in your community. And if you live in a historic home, I praise and applaud you for maintaining those homes for beauty and enjoyment of the historic district and the historic fabric of Valdosta and Lonwdes County. I thank the Historic Preservation Commission. I see some members here in the room. I think I didn't see Celine Gladwin. Was she in the room?
She wasn't able to make it.
She didn't come? Okay, well, I also was going to say, Celine, stand up and take a bow for the Lonwdes County Courthouse rehabilitation design. And are you Erin? Oh, okay, you work with, okay, all right. Well, thank you to Celine Gladwin and her firm for doing such a wonderful job. She's worked with, and her firm, a lot of historic rehabilitations. And I see a lot of other people who, I see Mike Dover in the background, who maintains a beautiful home on North Patterson Street in a historic home with his law office, and has for many, many years. And so I thank you all for being a part of making Valdosta more beautiful, more historic, and a better place to be. And thank you for coming today. All right, any last comments or questions or anything before we
I'd
go?
like to add to all your thank yous. Philip Williams over here, he doesn't want me to thank him, but I use his great resource very regularly. He has a project, the Wiregrass Region Digital History Project. It's accessible online. If anybody wants that link, just ask me here at the end. Incredible work, and thank you so much for all you do.
All right, well, y'all, thank you so much.